It's pretty much common knowledge that the video games industry today rakes in billions of dollars per year. From humble beginnings on home computer systems like Atari to the household names like Xbox and PlayStation, the medium has evolved as fast as the technology can be developed and iterated upon. One company of game developers leads the way in storytelling and graphics innovations and is constantly redefining what games can and should be. They have not, however, always stood at the peak of the industry. Naughty Dog Studios, best known today for hit titles such as Uncharted, whose film adaptation was just released, and The Last of Us, which has an HBO Max adaptation filming as I speak, was not an overnight success. Founded in 1984 as Jam Software by Andy Gavin and Jason Rubin, the studio developed its first 4 games for the Apple II computer system. In 1989, the company made 2 impactful changes, one external and the other internal. Externally, they changed their name to Naughty Dog Studios. This is the name under which they would eventually become known for their consistent quality and innovation. It's the name gamers know and love today. More importantly to their rise, however, was their internal change. From 1989 onward, the company would focus exclusively on home game consoles, leaving the PC world behind. Their first 2 games for consoles were strong enough outings to catch the eye of Sony Computer Entertainment, who were currently launching their first ever home game console called PlayStation. Sony commissioned Naughty Dog to develop a title for their burgeoning console, and in 1996, Crash Bandicoot was released. The game was received extremely well, both critically and with fans. The success of the title prompted additional follow-up titles, Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, Crash Bandicoot Warped, and Crash Team Racing. Sony later sold the rights to the games to Activision, but nostalgia and high demand from fans triggered a remake and release of all the games together in 2019. After the original Crash Bandicoot series had been completed, Naughty Dog had fulfilled their distribution deal with Universal Interactive Studios, which meant they were free agents. Sony leapt after the opportunity and acquired the company outright in 2001. They had secured their talent for the foreseeable future, and with the recent release of the PlayStation 2 a year prior, they were going to need it. Jak and Daxter was the next title developed and released by Naughty Dog. It was the first release of theirs under the Sony banner, as well as their first on the PS2. With similar success to that of Crash Bandicoot, Naughty Dog followed an almost identical strategy by releasing 2 full follow-up games, Jak 2 and Jak 3, and a racing game, Jak X Combat Racing. In 2005, Sony's PlayStation 3 was released. The console was large, clunky, and most people found that the initial $600 price tag put the console firmly out of reach. The launch was a mess overall. Gamers were flocking to the Xbox 360, Sony's primary competitor, in droves. Gamers, however, were not the only people for whom the new console was a struggle. Sony and their hardware architects enjoyed runaway success with their second outing on its way to becoming the best-selling gaming console of all time. For the new iteration, they partnered with Toshiba and IBM to use their Cell processor, the intent being to give developers an extra workhorse onto which they could offload major processes. This in turn would free the graphics hardware to do its job even better. This made for a more powerful console, but it was extremely difficult to program for. The Xbox, on the other hand, was made by Windows and therefore quite simple to develop for. Teams could make games for both systems, but all of that extra power that was paid for in the $600 price tag would go to waste. In fact, multi-platform games during what was called the 7th generation of gaming would typically perform worse on Sony's console than its counterpart. Naughty Dog was one of the teams that took on the task of figuring out Sony's Cell. For the first time, their development cycle went from less than 2 years to more than 3. They developed improvements in motion capture, bringing in real actors and allowing them to act out scenes in a digital realm before placing the set around them with computers. Amy Hennig, famed writer of the Legacy of Kain games, was penning the script. Most importantly of all, Naughty Dog was diving into the console, learning better than anyone how it actually works. The outcome of all this hard work and research was the release of Uncharted. Uncharted was a globe-trotting, treasure-hunting, Indiana Jones-inspired adventure game that contained some of the best physical and vocal performances ever seen. The power of the PlayStation 3 was on display, and the reviews that poured in were all very high. They loved Nathan Drake and his partners in crime, and they loved the adventure. Great graphics and even better storytelling were on the lips of all who played it, but few people knew that there was plenty left on the table. 2 years later, the world saw that the devs at Naughty Dog had simply been feeling out the ability of Sony's third console when they finally played Uncharted 2: Among Thieves. Uncharted 2 took gaming to a place it had never been. Graphics like these had never been seen on console before. The gameplay was high on action, while the downtime was near constant comedy and witty banter. The performances that Naughty Dog captured made many people feel like they were in the middle of a movie. After releasing a third title in the franchise called Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception to even more rave reviews, Naughty Dog set their sights on something different than they ever had before. While creating Drake's Deception, Naughty Dog split into two teams. One worked hard on Uncharted, while the other began early stages of development on a dark, melancholy, and violent adventure across the dystopian United States that would go on to be called The Last of Us. Part zombie horror, part cover-based shooter, The Last of Us featured storytelling on a level typically reserved for Hollywood. Not only that, but the processor had been in Naughty Dog's hands for almost a decade, and with every iteration of Uncharted, they had gotten better and better at wringing every ounce of power from it, and with Last of Us, it showed. Remasters for the Uncharted games and The Last of Us were developed for the soon-to-be PlayStation 4, upping the ante for how good these games could look and play while giving them the chance to learn how to develop for the new console. The PS4 era saw continued success for Naughty Dog. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End brought more of Drake's family into the fold. Uncharted Lost Legacy featured new protagonists and new points of view. The Last of Us 2, one of the most graphically impressive games ever made, brought Naughty Dog to the forefront of the news cycle with decisions that polarized fans. I'll avoid spoilers, but beloved characters were not spared the harsh and unforgiving game world. For years now, Sony has been the go-to publisher for the highest quality single-player gaming experiences since the PS3. Ghost of Tsushima, Marvel Spider-Man, and Horizon Zero Dawn have all joined the catalog over the years and have sequels in the works. But the Uncharted series started it all, and we have Naughty Dog to thank